What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show. Me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com, and I am back with my top 5 bets for the week in the world of mixed martial arts. And we have 2 cards this weekend, a really good PFL card on August 1st, and then on August 2nd, the UFC go back to the Apex with a card I wouldn't describe as a really good card, but there's, you know, there's some stuff on it anyway, and we'll get into all of that. As always, let's look back at last week, and last week was a pretty good week, I would say. Out of our 4 normal bets, we hit 2. We were unlucky, I think, with the 2 we didn't hit. The 2 we didn't hit, Whitaker had him at -147. In my opinion, he won the fight. Now very, very close. No, by no means a robbery or anything like that, but a bit unlucky with that. And we'd Sharon Magomedov by a KO. You know, maybe a tad unlucky, but you know, Barriot is a tough guy and did well to survive, which was always the issue there. But the 2 that did hit in, we had Bogdan Guskov at +152, pretty good bet at a good price there. I think the call on Krylov not being what he used to be, you know, but that was pretty correct. And we Peterian to win by decision at -143. Think I called that exactly what it was. Really respected the game of McGee. Thought he'd have a good first round, and Jan would take over, and that's kind of what happened in that one. And then the Flier hit, I have it down here as +358, but it actually went up to +410. And I tweeted that out beforehand as well. So we're taking the +410 on that on Muslim Salikov. Just straight up. That's no knockout or anything like that. That's only a straight up bet, +410. So what a couple of weeks it's been for the Flyers. For so long we'd only 1 Flyer, 2 Flyers hitting all the year, and now we suddenly have 5 Flyers have hit. So pretty good. The overall record, 61 from 117, above 50%. I'll take it. And then 5 Flyers out of 27. Okay, it's 5 from 27. But we'll take it, considering where we started with. So pretty good. And let's go. Right, let's get to this week. Okay, I'm doing something different in this week's betting show that I've ever done before, and I'm picking both guys in the same fight to win, and I'll tell you why in a second. Right, everyone knows what my Flyer is, so my Flyer is going to be a little bit different. We're going to have a losing bet this week. We know that, but let's get into it. Okay. Bet number 1. At -167. I'm going for Jesus Pinedo to beat Movlid Khaybulaev. Now, if you had told me this price at the start of the season or last season or whatever it might have been, there's no way I would have been backing him at this price. And even then, I'm still thinking about it. But at the end of the after doing the betting show, or sorry, the preview show, and if you haven't seen that yet, the PFL preview show is up. Please check it out. I feel really strongly about this fight. And spoiler alert, this is the fight I'm picking both lads in, but we'll get to that later on. I just think Pinedo is the guy right now. I think the 20 finishes in 25 fights. He's 29 years of age, 32 fights into his career. He's had the run in, up to the UFC, in the UFC, outside of the UFC, in the PFL. He's really found his home there now with his last, 6 fights there, sorry. It just feels like this is Pinedo's time. Like that performance against Braga, that performance against Barrocks. Like I correct me if I'm wrong, but I picked Barrocks going into that fight, and I'm a big fan of Adam Barrocks. And Braga had beaten him before. Obviously, he'd beaten Braga as well, but he just looked so good. And at the other side of it, I don't think Movlid did. I think Movlid lost that Jeremy Kennedy fight. The Kim fight, he was a little bit better, but still I thought Kim had his moments in that fight. And you just have to think to yourself, if Movlid can keep that fight, Pinedo can keep that fight standing, he's just going to have too much from Movlid. Now, we've seen Movlid knock people out before, but he's a guy that goes to decision a lot of the time. What does that mean? This is a bit weird to say because he's won all those decisions as well. Well, he had 1 draw. He gives guys chances, over 5 rounds. If you're giving a guy like Pinedo a chance multiple times over 5 rounds, it's going to be really, really tough not to catch something. I'm looking here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 fights in a row that he has won, he has finished. Right, the only one in the middle of that was a split decision loss. That is an unbelievable finishing rate. So I really like Pinedo. in that fight. I think it's his time. I think it's his year. But the other side of it is Movlid is really, really good, and it might be worth sticking something on him. So we'll get to Movlid here in a second. But that's bet number one of the week. Pinedo, straight up bet at -167. Bet number two of the week is, again, that was a bit of a risky one. I think this is a bit of a risky one too and I'll explain why. I'm going for my countryman Nathan Kelly to win at -156. And he's fighting Frédéric Duprat, who's 8-2 in his career. Lost his last fight to Braga. You know, had some good wins coming up before that, the best of which was against Jordan Beltran. And the reason I am giving you Nathan Kelly in this fight is because I think if this fight happened, so Nathan Kelly's last two fights were in April and January. If this fight happened in January instead of the Magomedov fight, I'd say Nathan Kelly would have been -500, -600 favor for this fight. Like, he's a very good fighter. He's beaten some very, very good guys along the way. Damon Nelson, who's fighting this weekend, Jose Sanchez, Ben Ellis, Shimrock, who's now in the UFC, Scott Pedersen in Bellator a few years ago, and looked so good in those last few wins before the start of this year. He lost the fight at Magomedov after a good first round. He got clipped towards the end of the round, and I think it turned around too quickly for the Taehyung Kim fight. My only worry for this fight is he turning around too quickly again? I know it's 2.5, 3 months or whatever, and the last one was a submission and not a knockout, and the first one was submission as well, but he did get hurt in that fight. So look, that's my issues, and I think that's the betting side's issues. But at the end of the day, you look at Duprat and you look at Nathan Kelly. At their best, who's better? And I think it's Kelly. I think Kelly is a really, really, really high-level prospect. And, sometimes it doesn't always work out, but also sometimes you take a loss, you take a couple of losses, and it makes you better. You go again. And that's what I'm banking on here. I'm banking on the class act that Kelly is. I'm banking on him bouncing back. And I'm banking on Duprat maybe not being good enough, if there is any side issues, to beat him. Now, Duprat's really good on the ground. He's 8 submission wins out of his 8 wins. But then Kelly's really good on the ground as well, like the youngest ever Irish BJJ black belt, 5 submission wins in his 11 wins. He's very, very good on the ground. So look, if Duprat goes in and catches him deep on a guillotine or a rear naked choke or whatever it might be, okay, like, you could beat anyone. But I think Kelly is very, very good. And he might have enough for him there, and he might even end up getting the submission himself. So that's bet number 2 of the week. Nathan Kelly at -156. Right, the Flier. The Flier is a double this week. I'm going for a double of Logan Storley and Movlid Khaybulaev at +652. Right, okay. Everyone knows I picked Pinedo on the first bet, and I'm picking Khaybulaev here. But you know what I'm doing here, right? I think Pinedo and Tajin will win. I think the two of them will win. But I think they'll win for very similar reasons. And my reasons are, I think they'll stop the takedown and I'll blast them on the feet. But I'm picking almost against myself here, right? I might be overthinking this, right? I might be overthinking this. But what if I'm wrong, right? This is almost like a bit of a hedge here, and that's what we can do with a Flier. I think that's not bad. Tajin isn't much of a price. Let me just check here again. I was going to give him as one of my picks, but -225. It's just too much. That's a really winnable fight for Logan Storley. Like, +200. I was thinking about giving Logan Storley. I do think Tajin will win, but that price is way off. That's to me. I actually think Chad, as funny as this sounds, not that I'm picking him, I think Tajin should probably be like a +110 to -105 type of thing. But if it, we all know as well, lads, sometimes it just turns into one of those nights. It could be 5 rounds of grueling wrestling in the co-main event. It could be 5 rounds of grueling wrestling in the main event. And that's it. That is the Flier +652.